Hello and welcome to the podcast all about becoming a health coach. I am your hostess with the mostest, Megan McCrory. I am a certified international health coach and I am bringing you along on my journey of building my health coaching business. And in this episode, I want to talk about how to coach when you don't have any clients. And if you want to be part of this episode, you can do that by joining the live stream or by commenting whenever you're listening to this. All right, so let's get into it. What does this mean, coaching with no clients? Well, a lot of people I know who are coming right out of school, right out of their health coach training program, they just don't have any clients, and you're super excited. You want to get going. You're on every coaching group on Facebook where you can learn how to find your ideal client and how to build your business and so on and so forth. But you've kind of left the coaching behind while you're trying to build the business. And so what we're talking about is like how to not lose that coaching aspect while you're building your business. You may have absolutely zero idea who your ideal client is. I know it took me a long time to figure out who my ideal client is, and I still think that that's morphing and changing as I go. But one of the things that I found extremely helpful in the time from when I took my health coaching training program to when I'm actually starting my business, which is actually like 4 years later, after I've done my health coaching, I have now starting my business. And one of the things I've done in between there is the items that we're going to talk about today is I coached without having any clients. Okay. So why, let's talk about first why. Let's get into why should we be doing this. So the first reason is that these are skills that you've paid a lot of money for, you've spent a lot of time learning, and if you don't use them, you will lose them. Just like learning a foreign language, just like building muscle, all these, any skill that requires any kind of repetitive practice. Musical instruments, that's also a good one. If you don't practice that skill, you will lose that ability to do that well. Okay. You might still be able to struggle through. So the first reason is just to use those skills every day or as much as possible. And one of the best parts about coaching is that you can practice coaching in your everyday life, in conversations and interactions that you have every day. You can put those skills to use and practice and flex that muscle. All right. Okay, so the next reason that you should practice coaching before you have any clients is that you have the potential to learn something from each person that you coach. Okay, there's information all around you, but all that information and each person that you come in contact with will have a different view, a different lens on that information, and the different viewpoint also on the issues and problems that they have, right? They may talk about a problem that you've heard of before, but maybe they're talking about it in a way you've never heard someone talk about it before, right? So think about that in relation to, like, you can do all the Google searches you want, but the nothing can give you the insight into people other than just engaging and interacting with them. So that's, you have this potential to learn everything from people that you're coaching. Okay, the third reason why it's really important to keep practicing coaching before you have any clients is to build your library of issues and problems and resources, actually, all three of these things. So you also have a unique lens on the world. So when you hear what somebody else says, you are processing this and you can say, oh, I have heard a podcast episode, a book, an article, or a specific person that I could connect that person with, right? So this is really good, right? To be able to Flex that muscle of making the connections between resources and the person you're talking with. This is beneficial for them because they obviously get a resource, they get some more information. It's beneficial for you because you're thinking about how you can help that person, giving them information that they can then process through their own lens rather than telling them about something. Yeah, sure, share your stories, share your insights, but sharing a resource is really good because they can, again, process that through their own lens, through their own history, and understand and take that information in the best way it's going to be for them to use that information. And the other thing about building your library of issues and problems is that, yeah, everybody's got problems that need solving. I mean, when you have a business, you have an ideal client and they have a problem and you want to help solve that problem. But a lot of times it's really hard for us to articulate other people's problems. And you can have the same problem, let's call it losing weight, right? Just to be generic. That's a problem. Somebody wants to lose weight or gain weight, either way. But the way each person talks about that problem is going to be unique to that person. And you may have an ideal target market within a subset of that. Like you want people who have tried 15 different times and never and have failed, right? Or something like that. But the point is that when you have conversations, when you talk with people, you are gathering that information and you are gathering all those problem statements and filling up that database, and that data is going to come in very handy when you are ready to define your ideal client. Okay. And then the last reason why you really need to be spending time practicing even before you have any clients is to get over imposter syndrome. Okay. I think everybody knows what that is, but that's essentially you feel like you shouldn't be doing it because you're not actually a coach yet. And this is very common with new coaches because you've just learned all of your skills and you're like, oh, but I'm not a coach yet. So how could I coach yet? Because I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Well, get over that. Get over it. And the best way to get over it is by practicing. Okay. And yeah, okay. So those are the 4 reasons why I think that regardless of whether you have any clients at all, you should be practicing coaching. So let's now shift gears and hop into how. How do you practice coaching when you don't have any clients? The first way is just simply to schedule a coffee chat or attend a networking event or anything that you can do where you're going to be able to have a conversation with someone longer than 10 minutes or something like that. So coffee chats are pretty easy because you can try to find someone you haven't connected with in a long time. It can be virtual, but it's actually much better for it to be in person. But you do what you can, right? So you're going to schedule this coffee chat, and the person you're talking with does not need to know that you're going to practice coaching on them. Okay. Uh, that's something you do not need to tell them. Actually, it's probably better if you think about it from yourself. I mean, of course, you can certainly tell them, but when you tell them that you want to practice coaching, it's going to be a different conversation. It's going to flex a little bit of different muscles, and maybe they're not comfortable with that. But you can definitely practice the skills of coaching without anybody knowing that you're actually coaching. So let's talk about how you go about doing that. All right. So the very first thing is to practice listening. I mean, that is like one of the hardest things for people to do is to just be quiet and listen to another person as they're talking without immediately thinking of all the things they want to say to that person, all the replies and responses. It is so difficult. It's so difficult. So this is definitely a muscle that you need to work on in your coaching, in your coaching body to practice listening. Just take a step back and focus on the person. Again, this has nothing to do like directly with coaching. It is a good coaching skill, but that's also a really good skill just to have when you're talking with people is to be a good listener. So I would say that is the very first thing that you should practice on. And before you, and all of these points that I'm going to get to, all of these tips I'm going to get to, you have to think about this and plan this before you go into your conversation. Now, as someone who's living in a country where I'm not a native speaker, I often prepare in my head kind of the interaction I might have with someone where I'm going to have to speak German. Okay. So I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to go there and this is the questions they're going to ask me and this is how I'm going to respond. And I kind of pre-plan out this dialogue in my brain. And that is exactly the types of things that you should do before you know you have an engagement with someone or an interaction with someone, because you've scheduled it, so you know it's coming, right? And before you go, you're going to go, okay, these are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to practice listening, and I'm going to notice myself when I start to think about something that's not completely focused on them. So in addition to you doing good listening to this person for the other person, you're also learning a lot about yourself and training yourself. It's almost like how you can train yourself in meditation to really control your thoughts. And that's what you're doing, right? You're controlling your actions and you're noticing when you are thinking about something else, whether that's the thing you want to respond to them, and come back to the point where you're just completely focused on that person. So that's the first tip. The second is to practice your good open-ended questions. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. When you're coaching, you do not want to ask them a question that's a yes or no question. You want them to elaborate, right? And I find it's really handy to have a list of ongoing, like a list of questions. You can frame them as past questions, present questions, and future questions. I've seen a lot of them listed that way. So what did you think about that in the past? Or what are your thoughts on this now? Or how do you feel, how do you think you'll feel about that in the future? So you can have this list of different questions and present this in different tenses. But whatever you do, having a list of these open-ended questions is a really good thing to have, because when you're in a conversation with someone, they might ask you a very good question, and you can record that and note it down and add it to your list of really good questions to ask people. Right. Okay. On to the next one. So the next one is digging below the surface quickly. If you have an hour with someone to have a coffee, you might spend 45 minutes talking about surface things. How was their last vacation? How is work going? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of surface stuff that you can cover, especially if you haven't seen someone in a while. But as soon as you can see and focus on where you think someone might want to dig deeper, right? It's the questions that you can ask are, well, what's on your mind? Or I can tell something's on your mind. What do what's going on there? Like, you know what I mean? Dig deeper, and get, who cares about, covering everything in one coaching, in one conversation. Get in there, get in there deep, because not only, again, are you practicing those skills of being able to recognize that a person is interested in wanting to talk about something, but you're also being a good friend, right? You're actually showing up for that person. You're listening to that person, and you're giving them a safe space for them to talk. So you are doing them a service, even though you are also practicing your coaching skills. Right. Okay. In that same vein, you want to make sure that this conversation is all about the other person. Okay. Before you meet up in person, you decide that the conversation is about them. Sure, you can give your updates or whatnot, but if you keep gearing that conversation and steering that conversation back to them, this is also a very good skill that you'll need with coaching, because sometimes your client can go off on a tangent and you need to guide them back. So by deciding at the beginning that the call is about them, then you can practice that skill of of guiding the conversation back into the topic at hand. Okay, so the other two things are actually something you would do after you have the conversation with someone, which is practice writing up your notes. Okay, so after the engagement is over, whether it's immediately or maybe later in the day, but I would say no more than 24 hours. And I would say try to do it the day of. At least I'm telling myself this because I will forget it if 24 hours passes or I sleep, right? So when you practice, what you're going to be doing is your practice. First of all, you're going to review the conversation and make some highlights, summarize the highlights of the conversation. What were the important points that they talked about? What were some feelings that you had? What were feelings that they had? Kind of just, yeah, you're just reviewing, you're just kind of analyzing the conversation from your viewpoint. You can also note down at that point what your key takeaways were, how well you thought you did in different areas and different aspects of the conversation. And also, this is also a great time to really think back also and make those connections about resources that you might be able to give to that person. And then, of course, the last tip is to follow up then with those resources. Get in the habit of within 24 hours sending those resources, whatever that resource is, a podcast, a book, a workbook, whatever it is. Send an email, follow-up email. Hey, you had a great time. Here's something I thought would be really great for you based on the conversation we had. And I'd love to talk to you more about it next time we meet up. When can we meet up again? And then you can schedule your next appointment with them or your next meeting with them. I mean, this is great because, again, back to the beginning of what we're talking about, why you're doing this is building your own resources. So if you have some kind of system to manage your inventory of resources, you could tag that resource with some specific keywords and really start to build that library. So when you have another situation in the future, you can start to look, through with keywords and say, oh yeah, here's 5 different books that hit that topic. Which one would be the best for that person to use? Okay. All right. So that is the first way. So the first way you can practice is really just scheduling a coffee chat or any kind of conversation with someone and just practice coaching, like I said, without them knowing. The second thing you can do, and this is what I did as well when I was, in the last 4 years, a lot of people have also a current job that they've done, and the health coaching is some kind of a side gig, and you've done all of the certification on the side, and you still have a full-time job, which is probably why you haven't really dove into creating the business all the way yet. Maybe you don't have enough bandwidth to create your business. But one of the best things that you can do is start to incorporate coaching into your current job. Whatever your job is, there is probably an opportunity for you to coach at work. So I've got 3 tips here. So the first one is if you work in some kind of corporate role, or actually a lot, I think almost any job, there is a value of having a coaching culture. I see it specifically in corporate roles, but yeah, any company might be valuing this. But you could be the first one to kind of step up and offer to prepare and teach basic coaching skills. There's several books out there that have basic coaching skills, and you could say, hey, I am a coach and I would love to teach some basic coaching skills to managers or anybody else who wants to learn. And this is an opportunity for you to become the expert at your company in coaching. And so the expert is literally just the person who knows the most in the room about that topic. And it doesn't mean you have to know everything. It just means you have to know a little bit more than everybody else in the room. So I did this at well, I didn't do exactly this. I didn't exactly reach out to do the coaching culture, but yeah, a lot of corporate companies and I mean, I'm thinking like even companies that aren't corporate, but I can't picture it. But anyway, you get the gist. Offer to help by teaching um, coaching in your current role. And this then leads into tip number two. By doing this, you de facto become the in house coach. People will start to know that you have got your coaching certification. You could I mean, you let other people know. And then what happens, or at least this has happened to me, often people have no idea what a health coach does, right? Or a life coach, or even business coaches and career coaches. People don't know what they do. So now is your perfect opportunity by presenting yourself as a coach in your current role. You can people can ask you about what's going on, like what is this coaching thing, and every time you have the opportunity to tell them what a coach is, you are anyway educating them, but you can also immediately begin coaching them by asking them questions, by asking them about their health, by asking about their wellness. Obviously they were interested enough to ask you about what a health coach is. You can turn around and flip that around so quickly to ask, what do they think a health coach should do, yeah, what are their thoughts on health coaching, right? So that is another opportunity for you to practice not only your pitch, but also practice giving a little bit of coaching. And I found that, just at the coffee cooler or the coffee station or the water cooler, in literally 10 minutes, people would be like, oh, having little mini revelations and thinking. And if someone can walk away from your conversation with a little bit of like thinking face on, they have that little scrunched and they're thinking, I would call that a win, definitely. Okay, the last tip about incorporating coaching at your current job is to start some kind of program. And that could be, maybe your company already has like a health initiative or some similar program where they offer kind of a wellness benefits to the employees. And whether or not they outsource that or insource that, you could approach whoever's running that program and say, hey, listen, I have my health coaching certification, and I would love to start a meditation group, or I'd love to start a group coaching circle, or I'd love to prepare a lunch and learn topic, or perhaps a workshop. All of these things that you could offer, especially because learning how to present health coaching in a corporate situation is a good skill to have because corporate clients for health coaching pay a lot of money. I'll be frank with you. So if you can practice that and you can hone those skills of how to present in a corporate situation, you will be steps ahead when you are ready to launch your business. Okay, so those are the 3 tips for how to incorporate coaching at your current job. And the last way that you can practice your coaching without any clients at all is to practice with another coach. Okay, coaches love to help. So you just need to ask. Um, yeah, I mean, it's really as simple as that. So I'm sure that you may have been in touch with some coaches that are in your health coach training program, or perhaps you've met coaches in a Facebook group where other coaches are hanging out. Um, no matter how you find another coach, and I really recommend, actually, by the way, if you did an online training, I would really recommend that you look for other health coaches in your area physically and start to meet up with them, just to create your little collective, your little brain trust of people around you. And again, so asking them for a coffee and tell them you want to practice. Tell them this is a practice for me. And if you could, this would be helpful if I could practice something along those lines. And then use all the information we already talked about before, listening, your open-ended questions, resources, etc. Um, but what's going to be really good about practicing with a coach, this is tip number 2, is that coaches know how to be coached. Okay. A lot of times, people who have never been in a coaching situation, they don't know how to be coached. So it can be a little frustrating for a new coach who is practicing in order to work through that. So and as I mentioned at the beginning, if you're just having a coffee conversation and you don't tell someone you're practicing, of course they don't know you're coaching them. That's not the point. The point was to flex some skills while you're just having a good talk. But now, in this third way, when you're coaching with other coaches, now is the time when you really want to make sure that you can flex your muscles. And so it's really good that the coach, you actually coach another coach so that they know, oh, I need to think about this and react and how to react. And it sounds silly, but it's kind of yeah, it's the truth. It's the truth. If you are a coach, you know how to be coached. Let's put it this way. And that's very helpful when you're practicing and a newbie. Okay. And the last thing about practicing with another coach is that your coaches can offer feedback, right? So that's not something you would typically ask someone if you're on a coffee date, having a conversation, because A, you didn't tell them you were practicing, and B, that's just a little weird unless the person is weird like that and they're up for it. But when you coach with another coach, then you can ask them for feedback. You can tell them that you're practicing, and the feedback is going to be, let's say, maybe put in a way that's more beneficial for you than feedback from a client. I mean, feedback from a client is always beneficial, but you know what I'm saying. So it's like kind of asking, it's like teaching with another teacher in the room, and that teacher can give you information that you might be able to do better in the situation, or you did really good in that situation because they also know how to teach. So same thing with coaches. Yeah. So these are the reasons why I think it's really important to coach when you don't have any clients, and how to do that when you don't have any clients. And I know there was a lot of information that I shared, and I should have probably mentioned it this at the top of the hour, but I do have all of that information in a nice, handy little free printable handout for you. And the link for that free printable is in the show notes, or it's over at on the episode page at becomingahealthcoach.ch. Yeah, so I thought I would just, get that all nice and tidy for you and help you guys out there. And I want to leave this conversation in a way that you know what to do next, right? So it's pretty simple, but it's also pretty hard, right? So it's not easy, but it's simple. And that is just to pick an action and make a plan to do that. So I have the handout that I have is kind of in a checklist format. So you can kind of check off like things that you've done, so you can make sure you can practice everything. And yeah, just pick one of the actions and make a plan to do it, and then be consistent with that. And if you need help or motivation or accountability to do that, to get started, I would love to invite you over to the My Best Self Coaching and Community, which is a community of like-actioned individuals. And we're all dedicated to supporting each other, and our paths will accomplish goals. Now, everybody in there has different goals, and you would be in there with the goal of becoming a health coach. And there would be other people in there with the same goal, but there will also be other people in there that have different goals. So that will be a nice way to kind of have a collective mind and kind of give you some other perspectives on different goals, and help you, you can coach other people in the community as well. Why not? You can join the community for free. It's a kind of a limited access when you're a free member, or you can join as a level up member. And when you join as a level up member, you get access to the group coaching, monthly challenges, accountability partners, weekly goal sharing. Um, yeah, and we are all there. The coaches are there to help you set and get to those goals. And your goal here, of course, is becoming a health coach. So don't do it alone. There's people out there like me who would love to help you. And if you need someone to practice with, I will volunteer at least a good half an hour of my time to chit chat with you, and you can practice coaching with me anytime. I will also leave a link for that in the show notes as well if you want to schedule a practice session with me. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, I have done a lot of talking, obviously, because it's just me today. And I think I'm just going to wrap it up there. So if you guys need anything, you can contact me through the Facebook group or through my website or through email. You know where all those things are. And I'm so happy to have had this time with you guys today. And I'm looking forward to the next one. See you later. Bye.